You're completely right. I think every day almost 6 to 8 million trees are disappearing just from the rainforests. But I don't think we are losing the battle because trees in farming landscapes are increasing, and I'm sure you've heard that before. However, these are trees which farmers, smallholder farmers want and which they value. And there's almost like 1,800 species just in Africa alone, which smallholder farmers value. So my answer to you is no, it's not a losing battle. We're very optimistic that we can promote tree cultivation in farming landscapes. We just need to convince the people with the big bucks.
We're here in Hyderabad, and India seems to me to have quite a curious relationship with trees. You sometimes pass through villages and there's a red string tied around it denoting it's holy, and there seems to be a strong bond between the people and sort of forests in general. But do you find that kind of same, I don't know, spiritual connection all across the world, or is this something unique to here?
Oh, definitely, this spiritual connection, at least from the part of world I am from. I am of Indian origins, except 4 generations ago. In Africa, I'm now African. There is a very strong connection with trees. Just that one that comes to my mind, which grows in my garden, is the mugumo. It's a fig tree. It's revered, it's prayed to by the Kikuyu tribes, and it will never be cut if it's found in your garden. So, and I think, and I know the similar relationships occur in many other developing countries and developed countries for all different reasons. Sometimes spiritual, sometimes just the beauty of having a tree there. People feel very connected. So it's not only in India, I think it's everywhere in the world. Yeah.
And I guess that's one way in which trees are protected. But what other ways can people work on to ensure that forests and trees, because I guess it always starts with one tree, doesn't it? What other ways can people work on to ensure that these areas are respected and I guess valued for what they give us?
You mean how the forests are respected? Okay, I'm from World Agroforestry Centre, where we promote wider cultivation of trees in farming landscapes. And one of our reasons for that is that many of the trees that communities, farming communities or communities outside the forest have used are being decimated, like I said, at the rate of almost 8 to 6 million a day. And one way to ensure their survival and their livelihood benefits to the smallholder farmers and to the larger community in general is to plant them on farms. So I'm trying to remember your question.
Well, I was saying that how else can we ensure that trees are valued? And you mentioned farms, and I guess that's one way, because if farmers know that these trees can benefit them and can ensure their crops are growing more, then they will protect them.
Well, I think the other ways to ensure that we have, first of all, is to make the global community aware of the benefits of trees. I mean, they're ubiquitous, they're everywhere, and I believe they're sometimes taken for granted. They're actually the matrix that binds the whole biodiversity. It's the matrix that binds birds and animals and microbes and the vegetation around it. And then I think to make that awareness and to have, and of course to have people with the bucks realize what a valuable natural resource we are losing. It is a problem to get funding. There is a lot of funding for protected forests. There is not enough funding for trees on farms. It is becoming better. We have great donors like IFAD, the World Bank, who are really coming into it. I think by making the world aware of the benefits, all the different functional uses of trees, trees, today 80% of Africa still use indigenous medicine from forests or from trees or herbaceous plants. Today, 80% of Africans suffer from, in the rural areas, suffer from micronutrient malnutrition, which a lot can be got from fruits, consumption of fruit. I think if we make people aware of all these issues, the benefits of trees, I think we have a greater chance of them being taken, not just taken for granted. So we have to go beyond, make a conscious effort to conserve them, whether it's in natural forests or whether it's on farming landscapes, and support them.
And when you're talking about sort of valuing trees, I mean, and in particular, sort of connecting with Africa, clearly many people use trees for they sell the timber, or they use it for heating themselves and cooking food. I'm sure that sort of perhaps they use it for building their houses. Are there smaller ways in which you can almost fulfill those demands people have and ensure they don't pick on the trees? So is it a case of ensuring that households in Africa have a better access to certain sources of energy? Is it a case of ensuring that certain areas are set aside for timber and preserving other areas just to allow the trees to grow?
You ask a good question. I think there need to be some good strategies to ensure sustainable use on the whole. Whether it's from the forests where wild harvesting is allowed, or whether it's from farming landscapes. We need to have, and we do have, approaches whereby you can have sustainable use for all the different functional uses you are mentioning, whether it's for firewood, whether it's for fodder, or whether it's for nutrition, fruits, vegetables, or whether just for microclimate, for animals. So I think it's about making everyone aware of how to use it sustainably. We need more international commitment to funding these. If it's protected land, I think, and not only, even in farming landscapes, I think there needs to be more support for communities who are supporting forests, more support for communities who are planting trees, whether it's through subsistence. I think there are so many different models one could use. But
and I guess in a final thought, one of those key, I hate the word, but it seems to be used all the time, one of those key mechanisms that's always talked about as a way of helping local people to protect their trees is REDD+. And I guess the final thought is it's quite depressing to think that the only way we can ensure that people look after forests is by offering them money, by giving them sort of cash to look after them. Ultimately, and you talked about the fig tree in your garden and how you sort of value that, and how people value trees in India and have the red string around them. But ultimately, is it a case of giving people money to look after trees? Is that the bottom line?
It isn't the bottom line, but it certainly is one line. I feel, where are the big diverse forests of the developed world? We heard a presentation today from the Finnish donor, who said 5 species. The developed countries have very few species left, so I think they're resource poor. They're actually resource, whereas developing countries they probably don't have the dollars, but they are certainly natural resource rich. They have the biodiversity. So is there a way to ensure that that is valued? I think communities do need to be paid. Subsistence, there still is subsistence in the developed countries. They're subsidized to plant food. In developing countries, we're not. We're not subsidized to plant food. And yet we expect our trees to stay there. People want instant food. And yes, they do respect their trees. They do respect, but they want food today. And trees can't give them all that food today. So and really trees are it's a public good. And if the world is so concerned about them, and they should be too, we feel then the smallholder farmers, who are our key stakeholders, need to be supported. To expect them to keep all the trees on their half acre of land and yet keep their stomach full, because trees will give them vitamins and they'll probably give them some medicinals, but will not give them everything else. They need everything, just like people from the developed world. So I believe, subsidize them, and they love their trees as well.